celebrate that, but what about a lot of cash on its way to the Maldives? Well, let's put that to Tom Burke, who's chairman of E3G, Third Generation Environmentalism, and has served as a government advisor on climate change. Broad response to what Mr. Miliband seems to be floating. Where are you on that? Good morning, Mr. Burke.
Good morning. I think there are three sort of dimensions, if you like, to the question. The first one is a moral dimension. Clearly, we've been partly responsible for, along with other rich countries, for creating the problem. We've clearly got some sort of moral responsibility not to look on and watch people, as it were, lives collapse around there, right, without trying to do something about it. I think the second dimension to the problem is simply an economic one. We need a whole lot of countries to sell things to if global Britain is going to mean anything to anybody. And if we don't help these countries stay stable and and their economies to recover, then we ourselves will find that we're cutting our nose off to spite our face, if you like, just because those economies won't be there, and therefore the markets for our goods won't be there. And thirdly, there's a political dimension to it. If those countries fail, if we don't help people deal with the loss and damage coming from climate change, and those countries fail, then we increase the problem of migration, of people migrating in large numbers away from those countries. So there are lots of good reasons why we ought to be thinking about what we, along with other nations, it's not just us on our own, what we need to do that's in our interest as well as their interest.
How would it be calculated?
I think there's no easy way to calculate. It's exactly why you're doing at this at COP in Sharm el-Sheikh, is having the negotiations about how that sort of amount is to be done. How much do we need to do in order to meet those requirements, and what's the burden of sharing around the world?
And just explain to my listeners, we are responsible. I assume, is it the Industrial Revolution then that you think we are degree of responsibility?
Well, it's just the fact that we have done in the past and are continuing to use a large amount of fossil fuels, which is contributing to the problem. And a lot of the countries that are actually suffering most from the current effects of climate change, let alone the future effects, are countries which are not contributing very much to making that problem. That's why I say there is indeed a moral dimension to it, as well as much more practical economic and political considerations.
But lastly, Mr. Burke, a young couple now who are possibly struggling to pay their mortgage, who know virtually nothing about the Industrial Revolution, and it's beyond their great-great-great-great-grandparents, why do they suddenly possibly see their tax rise so we can send money to Pakistan, who has its own space program? Well, you may laugh. I know you laugh, sir, but seriously, there are kids out there who are fighting to pay their mortgages, and they see a government say, well, I tell you what we're going to do. Because of the Industrial Revolution, we think we ought to send £65 million, which in the running of a country is a round of drinks. Why would we send it to Pakistan?
It's not because of the Industrial Revolution. It's because of what we are continuing to do, and because the wealth we have is today a product of that.
Tell that to the pensioners. They don't feel wealthy, sir.
Listen, I tell you what I will say exactly to this government. If you hadn't stopped, in order to avoid green crack, if you hadn't stopped insulating people's houses, that couple you were talking about would be a lot better off than they are now, because they'd be living in somewhere that was properly insulated and their bills wouldn't be as high. So it's not quite a simple thing, take money from here and put it somewhere else like there. We can afford to pay our part in a global effort to do something for all the reasons I've said.
Grateful for your time. Tom Burke chairs E3G, Third Generation Environmentalism, and served as a government advisor on climate change. Listening, Craig McKinley, who's a Conservative MP and founder of the Net Zero Scrutiny Group. Well, what would you say to the good folk of South Thanet if they were suddenly shelling out money to go to the Maldives? Good morning.
Well, you've got it absolutely right. We are in